Hi everyone, it's Kathy. Thank you so much for joining me. Today I'll be sharing how to create cute little treat boxes using the Build a Graveyard die set as well as the Sheets and Giggles stamp set from Whimsy Stamps. And at the end of the video, I'll share a photo of a project that I'll actually be doing over on the Whimsy YouTube channel tomorrow. Again, using the Build a Graveyard die set in a different way. But getting back to this project, to create these little treat boxes, you are going to have to make boxes for the candy to go into, and then the top and the bottom of the box are just created from the die cut tombstones from the Build a Graveyard set. So for the curved tombstone, you'll need 2 pieces of cardstock that measure 4.5 by 3.25. And to create the box for the flat-topped tombstone, you'll need 2 pieces of cardstock that measures 4.25 by 3.5. And the measurements are different because the flat-topped tombstone is a little bit shorter and a little bit wider than the curved-top tombstone. I'll be sure to list all of the measurements in the description box below, as well as all of the products that I used. And I decided to use my paper trimmer to do all of the scoring on this because one of those pieces of cardstock is scored at 1 inch on all 4 sides. But on the second piece of cardstock, you're still going to score on all 4 sides, but you need to score it at 1 1/16 of an inch. And my scoreboard doesn't have 16th inch increments, but my paper trimmer did. So I just used my stylus tool to be able to score those lines, and I use the little cut valley of the paper trimmer as a guide for my score lines. Anyway, the second piece needs to be scored at 1 1/16 of an inch so that the box top will pull off easier. I found that if I did it at 1 1/8 inch, the box top was too loose, and if I did it at 1 inch, it would be the exact same size as the bottom of the box, so I settled in on 1 1/16 of an inch. Anyway, after I had all of the scoring done, I did burnish those score lines with my bone folder to make sure that they would be nice and crisp when I went to put the box together. After I had the score lines burnished really well, I had the long side of the box facing me, and I cut up to the first perpendicular score line. And as always, when I make a box, I do like to cut a little bit of a notch out of those flaps so that when I do fold up the box, it folds up a lot more clean. I just used a pretty strong tape runner to close up my box by putting a little bit on each of those 4 tabs. Then you just fold up the tab and adhere it on the inside of the box, and you want to make sure that you get your corners lined up just so. For the bottom of the box, I did the exact same thing after I had burnished those score lines. With the long side of that box facing me, I cut up to the first perpendicular score line and cut out those little notches. Put adhesive on the tabs and then folded them in to create the bottom of the box. For the tombstones, I cut all of them only one time except for the largest die of the tombstone. Not the frame, but the actual tombstone. I did die cut that twice because one is going to be adhered to the top of the box and the other one is going to be the base of the box. And just to jazz up my tombstones a little bit, I did decide to do a little bit of ink blending with Distress Oxide ink in Black Soot, and I just used a small Amazon makeup brush just to get ink around those edges. After I had all of the ink blending done, I added a little bit of liquid glue to the back of the tombstone frame and adhered that to the largest die cut. There's a little piece at the bottom, and I did use liquid glue to adhere that piece back in just so it would have a little bit more dimension. After I adhered the frame and paper pieced that little strip at the bottom, I just adhered the other 3 tombstones right on top, and I just used my liquid glue for that. And then I decided to add just a little bit more ink to that tombstone. Now that other large piece is going to be the base of the box. So to put the box together, I used liquid glue on the bottom of the box that I made to adhere that to the other large tombstone die cut. And I would recommend a really strong adhesive for this part. This liquid glue is really very strong, and I chose to use it so that I could have some wiggle room in case I didn't get that box bottom centered quite right. After I did have it centered, I put the lid of the box on and put the glue on top of the box lid so I could add the top tombstone on top of the box. Does that make sense? I found it easier to stand up to adhere the top tombstone on top of the box and get it lined up with the base tombstone of the box. Anyway, moving right along, after I had both of the boxes put together, I stamped out a couple of the ghosts from the Sheets and Giggles stamp set, and I used Memento Tuxedo black ink for that onto a piece of Cougar Super Smooth cardstock. And I did very simple Copic coloring. I started with BV31 and literally just kind of did the outline of the ghost, and then I would go in with a little bit heavier hand for the areas where there might be a shadow, like where the top of their head kind of flops over. And then I blended that out with B60. I decided to go back and add some shading underneath the eyes of each of the ghosts. And then I used my colorless blender just to get rid of some of the harsher lines. And to color in the mouths of the ghost, I used C3. And I did color the other two ghosts the exact same way with the exact same colors. My original plan was to have both of the ghosts on top of the tombstones, but I was kind of playing around with it off camera, and I thought it would be cute to have one of the ghosts behind the tombstone. It probably would have been a better idea to adhere the ghost behind the tombstone before I adhered the tombstone on top of the box, but we kind of learn these things as we go. I was able to get the bottom of the ghost kind of tucked underneath the tombstone and the box lid. And then for the ghost on the front, I did adhere him with a little bit of foam tape. And then I used liquid glue just to add a couple of little bats. For the flat-topped tombstone treat box, I did the same thing. I put one of the ghosts behind the tombstone, and then the ghost that's on the front, I popped him up with foam tape and adhered the bats flat. And the last thing that you need to do is fill your boxes with a little bit of treats. The curved top tombstone box fits a mini Twix bar perfectly, and the flat-topped tombstone treat box, you could probably fit a Reese's peanut butter cup in that one because it's a little bit wider. Anyway, that finishes up my project for today. Thank you so much for joining me. Here's another look at the tombstone treat boxes. And here's a sneak peek of the video that I'll have up on the Whimsy Stamps YouTube channel tomorrow, so make sure you check that out as well. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you've not yet subscribed, I'd love it if you would. And don't forget to ring the bell so you're notified every time a new video is posted. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.